It's the best opportunity for learning and the best opportunity to grow yourself as an educator, and also the best opportunity to work collaboratively with a group.
Lesson study focuses on how the learner reacts or how the learner learns. So it's made me more conscious of how can I best say this so the learner can learn it.
It's opened my eyes definitely as a teacher, and changed the way that I think of a professional learning community, really.
The best part of it is working with the kids and not just hearing about, okay, when you go to your classroom, this is what you need to do, but having the chance to sit with the kids, be up close and personal, one-on-one, and analyzing the data that you collect. And the data is what really drives your instruction once you go back to the classroom, because you're going to figure out what worked and what didn't work.
What really appeals to me about the lesson study process is the ownership that teachers have to take for their own professional learning. Another aspect of lesson study that makes it very powerful is the focus is on the learning and the learner, not on the teacher. And that is such a safe place for teachers to really learn and share and grow from one another. And that whole idea that we are going to work on a lesson, it's going to be the best lesson we can prepare, knowing what we know right now, and we're going to try it out. And we're going to spend the time really collecting data on the students, and then we're going to come back and analyze that data, and we're going to see what in the lesson worked and what in the lesson might we need to do differently to get our desired result or outcome. And you know, in the case of Grand Avenue this week, these teachers have been working really hard to design lessons that engage all of their students, and engagement is huge here.
One misconception about lesson study is that it's about making a lesson perfect. But really, it's about creating a lesson that we're going to learn from. And that learning oftentimes is uncomfortable and maybe a little ugly. Lessons don't always go right. And actually, I think teachers, at least in my own teaching experience, I know, and I'm sure it's true with my colleagues, is that when lessons don't go well is when we learn the most. And so what lesson study gives us the opportunity to do is to set a lesson up intentionally, get lots of eyes and ears in the classroom to research it, and then see, well, what really happened? Where do we need to build on success, and where do we need to address a challenge?
Today what we're going to do is just start by revisiting your research theme. We're going to take a look at the lesson that you all have chosen to work from, to plan. And we'll spend a good bit of time just in that lesson, planning the lesson. Tomorrow, once we've planned the lesson, one of you will teach the lesson and we'll decide the data that we're going to collect. We'll do that in the morning. And then we'll go and watch the lesson, collect the data. And then the bulk of our time tomorrow will really be spent on analyzing the data to see what we learned from the lesson, okay? Let's just go back to your research theme. And you know, this year you've been really working, thinking about planning lessons that allowed for 100% student engagement so that all of the kids were truly engaged with the lesson, and that all children had access, and you were really differentiating for different needs, even within your own group lessons, making sure that all children's needs were being met. So that is the research theme that we'll be planning today's lesson, the frame that we'll be using today, okay? So now let's go through each part of the lesson and decide exactly what we're going to do in each part of the lesson based on what you think this might happen with the students, okay? So who could just summarize what happens at the introduction to the lesson, the first section?
So then we start reading and showing the illustrations and then clarifying the suggested vocab in there. And our first stop is we question what has happened so far. So is this a part where we want to emphasize using the book to support their thinking?
So you ready to move to the next part of the lesson?
Yes.
Okay, so can someone summarize what's going to happen there?
Basically, they're gonna listen to the story up to help me carry the milk, and then we're gonna ask them what's happened so far. They'll turn and talk to their partners, and then we'll signal for them to put their eyes back on us.
Why don't you go through the lesson and just kind of put a number of minutes you think each section should take, so that whoever teaches the lesson knows how much time to spend in each section. Okay? So just each of you go through and do that. Just to remember that the beauty of this lesson is we're going to actually watch to see what the kids do. So we're going to learn a lot about all these things we're anticipating tomorrow, and then we'll know what things we might need to do differently in the next lesson. So I think we pretty much got the lesson planned. So the next decision we have to make is who will teach the lesson and whose classroom the lesson will be taught in. We can just volunteer, or we can pick a name out of a hat. What would you guys like to do?
Let's just do a name out of the hat.
Yeah, let's do name out of the hat. That sounds
Okay, so everybody want to take a Post-it? Let's all do the same color. We'll do yellow.
We pull them the same way.
Yes.
So somebody want to reach in the cup and pick the name?
Right.
Okay. Okay, so Donna, you're going to teach the lesson. So we can do the next part, decide whose classroom we're going to teach the research lesson in a couple of ways. Either if one of you would like to volunteer your class, we can do it that way, or we can choose another name. So is there someone who would like to have the lesson taught in their classroom?
I'd be happy to.
And I was thinking her room because it's spacious.
Okay, so tomorrow Donna's going to teach the lesson. We'll teach it in Abby's room. Donna, do you want to just go back through the lesson real quickly to make sure you know what's going to happen and to see if you have any questions for
Okay.
the rest of the team, just for clarification?
All right. Okay, we're going to start off looking at
Just think about what the purpose of yesterday's lesson was and how the children actually did in yesterday's lesson. I think that will help us think about how we're going to plan today's lesson in relation to what you already know about where your kids are with the research theme and how they did yesterday in regards or in relationship to the research theme.
So it was really hard to, especially with the kids that have that are more at risk, really getting them to understand what has happened so far and tapping into using names instead of pronouns. And they were hard names, but just as a general, what's happened, they had a really hard time with that.
So I think this is going to be hard for our focus to help them, and to retell using the story going on that long.
So maybe that'd be a good spot to say, tell me one thing that happened.
Right.
Okay.
That's going to be hard.
One dark and windy autumn night, when the sun had long gone down, Mama asked my sister and me to take the road to the end of town to get a bucket of milk. Ooh, I dreaded to go. Ooh, I dreaded the tree. Why does Mama always choose me? Noah, tell me one thing that you and your partner talked about.
That he was muttering to himself at when they were getting the milk that no one's gonna put milk in his hat. The sister said, "Why do you bring that stupid hat? It looks so ugly."
Everybody liked that comment about looking stupid in the hat. You are right.
Half of the milk fell.
Jasmine.
They're running.
They are running. Jasmine saw them running. Look at that. Yes.
what do we think about when we ask what has happened so far? Will they be able to retell specific section using the text?
And they didn't really sequence the events. They just kind of said random things that happened, you know.
The reason I put this string of conversation on the Delta side is because they were just retelling random events in no order. So what I'm wondering is, how do we help the children really get the bigger picture of the story and not just be relating or focusing on isolated events or details? To me, that's where the real struggle
And
was
that's what I
with the
felt too,
retelling.
was that they understood some parts, but then they weren't really sequencing when they were retelling.
And it really, that part really had huge implications in my mind and everything that they read. If the kids are not, if they don't understand that a story, is this bigger message, and there's, they should be listening and reading for that, not just for these details. What might we do to help?
The children really focused on the little details that it was an important part of the story, but it wasn't the main idea. It wasn't the big picture. And how can we help them to step back and be able to figure out, okay, that's a funny detail, but what's the main idea here? And even like what's important if we're doing retelling? What are the 3 most important events?
And the sequence that they happen.
Because that was
Because they were just giving random.
And that's what we talked about.
And again, I think that happened because of what we decided I would say. We decided that I would say, tell me one thing that happened.
That's true.
And so when I said, tell me one thing that happened, they did. They did exactly what we asked them to do, but we didn't tell them to sequence it. So,
That's true.
Or maybe we need to think
So
about
how
that.
would we do it? Say, okay, who can tell me the first thing?
Right.
Who can tell me the second? next?
Be better words.
I remember yesterday when you all were talking about what was going to be challenging for the children, and you said that retelling is a struggle for them. And so it makes me wonder if the implications, maybe not for this unit, I'm wondering, but the implications for other parts of the day might be that we really do want to be more intentional about teaching children what a good retelling is and how to retell.
We used to do trainings, but that's no longer the case. Trainings and workshops just weren't cutting it. There was we didn't have any continuity with it. There wasn't something that we weren't getting the bang for our buck with workshops and trainings. The lesson study piece has been the most potent professional development model that we found. And it takes, of course, resources and investment, but we can't afford not to do it.
The process of lesson study can actually build the professional learning community. I think it can build the collegiality among the staff. I think just participating in lesson study for any school really can help them accelerate that whole idea of a professional learning community just in itself.
I think what's really powerful about lesson study is that actually what it does is it helps teachers focus more on student thinking. The act of having to listen to them to collect the data that they need in a research lesson is a really powerful act, because if we can get teachers just to listen to students, to value their voice, and to understand the different ways in which that manifests itself in a lesson, it can have a powerful impact on their own teaching when they leave a lesson study.
I've never seen our teachers become better kid watchers than they are now. They work collaboratively now better than ever before. Before we were about team building, now we're about team learning. We're trying to be a school that where we collect data that's meaningful. And our teachers, I believe, are collecting good data. They're watching students and collecting data that's going to inform instruction. And when the instruction improves, achievement improves. And that's what it's all about.